imagination.
Yep.
How many more do you want?
I'll keep going since I've got a photograph of them.
You said you didn't think there was a photograph. I don't know what that symbol is. Tree City, USA. Blue Ribbon Schools of Excellence.
Yeah, that one's
Best
on the top of it.
hometown.
Best hometown.
Protect something rather Moose Lodge.
It's the Moose Lodge.
Okay. And then a couple of faded ones.
Yep, so faded, you can't read them. And did you say the Merchants Association?
Yes.
It looks horrible too, they need to replace it, just FYI. You are Rotary geniuses.
Because we know what to look for. He has the trophy to prove it, actually.
Okay, right.
One might have been Knights of Columbus.
Was it?
No. All right.
We'll get someone from the city and send them a memo. Let them know the update. Okay. The winner share $337. $337.
Oh, but you want the ticket, right?
Yeah.
You can just draw one while you're there, Justin.
You got it.
Thank you, sir.
Blue ticket. 085.
085. Karen, you got it? Oh, Carolyn. 085. Very good.
Magic bag of cards.
Looking for 9 of diamonds. What? You won before, haven't you? A lot of players.
Oh.
Jack of hearts.
Right.
But you win a consolation prize. And you get to keep the card.
Oh.
Sheriff.
Very good. Very good.
Put that up my sleeve.
All right. Well, we have some of our Rotary members here today. As we know, Stacy and Greg are part of our school district and leadership, and they're going to spend some time talking with us today about school and I think probably an update on finances too. So, thank you very much for coming. You guys want to use the handheld or you want to use the headset?
Little button down on the bottom.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, now let me see how we talk to the other screen.
Okay.
Oh.
Forget it.
Sure. If you all don't mind, hold on a second. Yeah, see. So, hold on 1 second. Here we go. Okay, we're ready. Thank you. Technology. Jumping off of one Wi-Fi and onto another, making sure everything's updated. But what I'm going to share, and we'll go back and forth today, is state of the school that has to do specifically with our fiscal stewardship and with sustainable school funding for the Viking community. There is a card on your table, and you're each welcome to have those, of course, but we are sending those out also to every resident within the school district in September. Okay, so you'll see it again. But that shares some factual statistics about our schools. We drive over 3,000 miles a day. You know how many meals we serve daily. It quotes the enrollment at the time we printed that, although I looked this morning. We're responsible for over 5,000 students, 5,105 as of about noon to 11 today. So that's some factual information for you to see as we move through this. And as some of you, before I get there, sorry, some of you may or may not know, the school board, after a lot of meetings and deliberations and deficit planning meetings, which is some of the reasons we haven't been at Rotary the second half of last year because they were Wednesdays, we will be on the ballot in November for a 0.5% traditional income tax. And there's a lot of information that goes into why that's the case. And so one of the reasons beginning here is that the city of the Miamisburg City Schools has not asked voters for any new operating money since 2010, which is 16 years, which is fantastic. The state average for public schools, which there's just over 600 public districts in Ohio, the state average is about every 3 to 5 years, a school district is going to their community. And so it's been 16 for us, which is a great run, but we're at a place where there's some deficit spending happening, and we're doing some things on our end to reduce that. But we are at a place that we do need to have something on the ballot. So strong schools require both responsible spending and sustainable revenue. And two things can be true at the same time. We as a district, school board and administration are doing cost discipline. And I'll get into details about attrition, contracts, and buildings. That's where we can save the most. And then stable revenue, which is local voter approved support, ensures that our student experience can stay the same. And we don't have to reduce things that directly impact our kids' experience, our families' experiences, or any of our offerings, whether it's extracurricular, academic, etc. So, and I'll let Greg elaborate, but as a quick snapshot, like my side of it is, the green and the blue is 2/3 of the pie. That's local revenue. The yellow and the red is 1/3 of the pie, and that's state revenue. So we're about 1/3, 2/3. I don't know if you want to elaborate at all, but
No, as Stacy said, if you look at our breakdown, and again, these are general fund that we're talking about right now. The district also receives like federal money
for Title I and IDEA for special ed students and things like that. We get state restricted funds. Well, what we're talking about today is just general fund that we are allowed to spend on anything for education.
So this is a 10-year history of property tax revenue, and property tax is a big conversation in the whole state of Ohio right now. And you can see from fiscal year 18 through what's projected in the school year we just started, how the 10-year history of property tax revenue has been projected. It's dipping a bit, but you can see it doesn't stay even close to on pace with the red line, which is inflation and cumulative inflation over those 10 years.
Yeah, as you look at this slide too, just most of us remember during COVID, we had a every 6 years, the county auditor does a full-blown reappraisal. That's happening right now. So literally someone will come out and put eyes on your home or your business, and they will do a full evaluation of what they believe it is worth based on all the different inputs for property value. In between there at the 3-year point, and so this would have been in 2023, there's an update. So basically the county auditor is looking at comparable sales for homes in your neighborhood. And so that's when they do just a kind of an over the top update. That's called the triennial update. And then you have a sexennial 6-year reappraisal. So in 2026, we're doing a reappraisal. You'll remember back in 2023, there was an update, and that was 24.6% on average. And again, your mileage may vary. Your home may have gone up less. It could have gone up more. But ultimately, when you see these numbers, so again, when you have a fiscal 23, that would have been the year of the update. You get a half year's worth of uptick the following year for the school district. You get a full year's worth of increase the following year. So that's why you see in fiscal 25, you see that number. You see in 24, it jumps up a little bit. In 25, we get the full impact of that 3-year triennial update. And that continued into 25, into 26, this year that we just finished up June 30th. You'll see it's just a little bit. A lot of that is just new construction. When you see all these new subdivisions going up, that little uptick that you see in fiscal 26 was largely due to new construction.
Now this slide is about state funding. So that 1/3 of our funding. This is state funding over the last 10 years as well.
You can see it does not by any means keep up with the inflation line in the red. And you can also see the correlation. If you look at the year we just ended, fiscal year 26, the last bar on the right, it is at the same amount that the state issued us funding in fiscal year 19. So we did a bump there a couple, 3 years ago. We dropped from fiscal 19, we did a bump, but this past school year, the state decided we could operate with the portion of funds from the state that was the same as 2019.
And it's worth mentioning at the same time that all this is happening, in fiscal 26, the state had a $1.2 billion surplus. So not only are they cutting school funding, which is one of their primary objectives as state government, but they're also doing it when they're bringing in record amounts of revenue, income taxes, and sales tax revenues into the state coffers. So it's a bit counterintuitive. And again, how many people here have heard about the Fair School Funding Plan? There was a big push, several years ago. Hey, we finally figured out, because school funding in the state of Ohio had been ruled unconstitutional for decades. And every other year, the state Supreme Court would come back and hold the state in contempt because they hadn't fixed it, that it wasn't equitable. And so finally, in 2019 and 2020, there was a couple of state legislators that got together and figured out this Fair School Funding Plan. And it was supposed to be the fix-all. And it actually, when you see what happened, if you see what happens here in fiscal 24, that's when it really started catching traction. And then the state decided, we don't want to fund that anymore, and they abandoned it. And so now you see what's happened then is just, okay, we had a peak, and then it's just dropping steadily. And as Stacy said, now we're back to fiscal year 19 funding. And since then, there's been a little bit of inflation you may have noticed in your own household, as well as the school feels it as well.
So a traditional school income tax is about where people live. So anyone who resides within our school district boundaries would be privy to this. There's an exception, but we'll get to that. And the revenue that it would create is just under $7 million eventually. We don't start collecting that if it were to pass in November. We wouldn't get any portion of it at all until we get a tiny portion.
5.9%.
Yeah.
So
there
between
you go.
now and the end of the year, so they would begin if it passes in November, the collections start with the next calendar year. So if it passes in November, it would start collecting as of January 1. They do it on a quarterly basis. So January, February, March, we would actually get those payments, a portion of those payments in April. So that's the only, and it's less than 6%. So the state warns you that when you do these income taxes, there is a 18-month phase in. So in the first year, we would get less than 6%. In the second year, we only get 70%.
And it's all because of the way taxes are collected in the state of Ohio. If you're a sole proprietor, many of you are business owners, you know how your taxes are paid oftentimes in arrears because of the business taxes are treated differently. That's why for the school district, it actually is a long phase-in period before we actually get to feel the full effect of it and get the actual benefit of the full collections.
Oh, well, this is the collection.
That's what you
Speaking
just
of-
explained. This is what it looks like. So this is this school year and then the next 4 school years. So a 5-year school year, and that's if it were to pass in the fall.
And it should be mentioned that there's also it is subject to growth. So
as your income grows, as my income grows, the collections would increase. On average, when we do our forecasting, we do that on a 25-year average, and on average, salaries increase 1.664%. So that's what we used as the growth generator on all of our projections.
So as I mentioned earlier,
It's for residents. So if you work outside of Miamisburg schools and there's a city income tax where you work, that's different and separate. It's all about where everyone lives. And so I mentioned earlier an exemption. If anyone has a Social Security income, that is exempt from the traditional income tax. That would be on the ballot. The rate is 0.5%. I mentioned that early on. in very simple terms and numbers, 0.5% is 50 cents for every $100. The duration would be continuing, and the purpose is to make an effort to reduce our deficit spending, which I'll go into here in another slide specifically, so that we can maintain all of our school services and how we deliver our services to our students. Okay, so we'll tag team this slide, but essentially
This is a Viking family that has a 4-person household. Their income is
$100,000, household income is $100,000. The traditional income tax is actually based on your AGI, your adjusted gross income. So you can see their deductions, and then you get down to, whether you put a health savings plan, a retirement plan, your state deduction per person. So the actual implication would be that this family at $100,000 coming in as a 4-person household would pay $437 for the year towards the school district. It equates to $1.20 a day, and it actually is not the equivalent of 0.5% of their 100,000. It's more like 0.4%, a quarter of a percent. So
Yeah, it actually equates to more like, instead of being 0.5%, it's like 0.44% in this particular example. By the way, how do you like my drawing? See, Stacy is the art major, and I created that drawing. I spent hours on that caricature. Oh yeah, ignore that. It just, yeah, that, I don't know how that got in there, but. So no, bottom line is though, again,
It's based on your adjusted gross income. So again, when you fill out your federal taxes, there are things that you automatically take
off the top line. So your health care, it comes off. Any money you spent on the health savings accounts. There's all sorts of retirement vessels that come off your top line, and then ultimately that's your AGI, and then you take off your state deductions, and that becomes the number that is actually subject to the school district income tax. So it's actually, again, the effective rate, if you will, is less than 0.5%.
But this does put a dollar amount to an example, and the dollar amount is $437 a year to the schools.
Okay, the reason this may benefit the school district is, first and foremost, it diversifies our revenue. So we're hearing about the property tax legislation. We're hearing and we're seeing that the state funding is going down. This diversifies away from traditional property tax. And I will share with you that in Ohio, I mentioned there's just over 600 public school districts. Over 200 of them already have an income tax in place. So 1/3 of our districts in the state already do this. And if you follow the local news, and I suspect hundreds of districts in the state will be asking for an income tax in the future or already have. So Kings Local south of us passed one last year. Lebanon is asking for 1% this year.
So this is something, the diversifying of our revenue stream, because we're not in the business of making money. But the revenue stream being diversified is really the key to this being the ask right now. It's local control, of course, voter approved by our community. It's tied to income, as Greg mentioned. So, that 0.5%, the idea is if you can't afford as much, you're not just stuck with this the county determines what your property's worth, so that's what you pay. This is directly tied to what you're bringing into your household. And then it's planning stability. So as a school district, for us and the school board, it adds stability to what we know the revenue stream would be moving forward.
It should be mentioned that the Ohio legislature, especially the leadership in the General Assembly, they made it very clear as they were passing the property tax reform legislation last year in December of 26 when it was signed into law, that they were pushing schools to diversify revenues, and there's only 2 ways to do it. You either do it through property tax or you do it through income tax. So they made it quite clear they were pushing schools away from running property tax levies and moving more towards income tax. That was the push by the General Assembly.
So, as I mentioned, deficit spending, we initially projected At the beginning of last school year, when we both came on board, we both started with the school district in August of 25. It was projected to be us to deficit spend, meaning spend more than we're bringing in, at just over $6 million. So we got to work and got with our cabinet and did some things, and we were able to reduce that by $3.7 million going into the school year. And there are three main ways that I mentioned earlier that we were able to reduce that almost $7 million projected to less than 3.7 million less. And it's these three big buckets at the top. So number one, salary and benefits, which accounts for about 80% of what a school district budgets. Your people are your biggest expense by far. We review vacancies. We review whether we need positions replaced. When we have people that retire, resign, we review that right away. But even those that retire and we say, of course, we need to replace this position, we wouldn't go forward without it. Someone who retires at the top to have earned that retirement at the top of the pay scale. So they're our most expensive employees. They're our most experienced and they're wonderful. But typically when they leave, they're the most expensive, and we get to replace them with someone less expensive than they are. So even with a one-to-one, we're replacing everybody. Attrition is a big thing for a school district to save money. We reviewed every single contract. We've been going out and reviewing every contract we enter into to make sure we're getting the best services or the best cost, just like you would at your house before you sign up with a company to do work for you or provide services for your home. And we've had quite a bit of cost savings there. And then finally, efficient use of district buildings. And I'll go into some detail after this slide, but looking at our spaces and being efficient and attempting to cut cost where we can to keep things up and running. These bullets at the bottom are just areas that we actually looked at, departments we looked at outside of these three big buckets, just everywhere. We looked at everything because $10,000 adds up. Believe it or not, we're not looking for one big $3 to $6 million save. We're looking to save a little bit everywhere.
Yeah, the other thing, just real quick to mention on that too, is
the importance of doing this through attrition.
As one of the biggest employers in the city or in the area, the last thing you want to do is have to go in and do layoffs, right? I mean, that's just it is a the emotional impact that has on your community is just devastating. And so fortunately for us, we had a lot of teachers and staff members that were approaching retirement age anyway, and the state reduced the retirement threshold from 34 years to 32 years. And as a result, we saw this massive wave of teachers and other staff members that said, hey, you know what? I'm eligible. I can get full bennies. I'm gonzo. And so thankfully for us, that opened up the opportunity that we didn't have to make layoffs or do anything draconian. We were able to do it through the natural cycle of staffing. And by doing that, we were able to reduce, millions of dollars worth of salaries and benefits that way.
So I mentioned utilizing our buildings. I'm going to start actually in this bottom green box with Maddox Lang. So beautiful location.
Was built to be our preschool.
And was great. And at the time with 8 classrooms in it, has 8 classrooms, felt like it was a huge space. And we had definitely outgrown it to the point we had other preschool classrooms already at Bayer and other preschool classrooms at Mark Twain. So they were spread out across the district. Support staff for preschool services were traveling during the day. And so we identified some student needs to repurpose Maddox Lang for this school year. In a way that makes a lot of sense for that building space. One, including students with special needs. We have 2 classrooms over there for students with some more severe behavioral special needs. Some of these students are students that you may hear if you follow school districts that we contract with county learning centers sometimes because their needs are so intensive. When a school district does that, though, there's a very large price tag tied to that student, and sometimes it's definitely upwards of $100,000 to $150,000 per student for a school district to pay to send them somewhere else. So while we look at each individual student, those that are ready to transition back to Miamisburg, we have 2 classrooms to support them in that. We have those classrooms to, before we sign a contract, to say, we're going to spend $150,000 to send them somewhere else. We have 2 classrooms to give them a try, to try to help build the skills that they need to be successful in school. So we're using 2 rooms over there that way. And then we have additional classrooms for students, unfortunately, sometimes make poor choices and get suspended. So it's not helpful
For anyone that they get sent home for the day or 3 days.
So we actually started the Viking Success Center there. So when a student has a behavior incident, that is, you made a poor choice, you did something you weren't supposed to, and it's suspendable, they actually go there. And we have 2 licensed teachers there, and they're not losing instructional time. They're not just at home, they're not hanging out. And we're hopefully, and then we're getting them right back to their homeschool when they're finished. So the hope is that staff there for the Viking Success Center connects with them when they're there, and they continue to be a checkpoint for them. And they're going to visit their homeschool throughout the year to try to help build, again, that good, positive decision making. So that's a purpose of that
space, which leads me to Bear
becoming our entire preschool building. So Bear has 17 classrooms in it. Last year, we only had 120 students there, with 6 classrooms being utilized. We're heating it, we're cooling it, we're maintaining it. By merging preschools together, it created 13 classrooms being
used, all preschoolers. All services that support preschool are in one location. There's no traveling during the school day. And we're utilizing the building and the space to a much more efficient capacity way. Our technology department, so we own the office on Central, excuse me, and we actually have moved the offices, the tech department that was in that building. We have moved to our middle school, which had space and an opportunity with an exterior door. Our tech department is housed there now. Again, the middle school maintained, heated, cooled. Those classrooms we were not needing to use for instructional purposes. So we moved them. And so we're looking with our current staffing size, if we don't need that building, I'll talk to the school board actually tomorrow evening at the school board meeting, and potentially selling and doing some cost savings in that direction. And then finally, Memorial, if you haven't been
to our central office recently, we have some really large, beautiful spaces that
we're reinventing and to make learning spaces for our staff. We want to grow them and keep them invigorated. And so just using our spaces really efficiently.
So the balance plan is cost savings on our part, transparent communication. So we're doing several of these with you guys, with community. We have community dates and times with every staff at each building in the district from now through the end of October. And then we're sending mailers home, and we want to just be very, very transparent about here's where we are as a district. You all should know the stats of where you live and what you contribute to. And then the community's piece is that stable revenue. And so that's why we're on the ballot. The reason for this 3-pronged plan, though, is to preserve our high quality teaching, safe schools, student supports, and as I mentioned, all the Viking opportunities that we have for our families. This is our message to the community. Miamisburg City Schools is committed to protecting the Viking student experience while being responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. During this school year, the district is reducing costs through attrition, reviewing every contract, and using our buildings more efficiently. And a traditional school income tax is one local option that can help create sustainable revenue for school district purposes if approved by the voters. So we are looking to sustain excellence in Miamisburg City Schools. So that ballot ask has to be combined with us being fiscally responsible and still saving. It in no way is like a silver bullet to bring in all this money and we're just flush with cash. It's not that at all. It actually just, in conjunction with what's going to be required to trim and budget very tight, it's going to be required of us to do that, but it helps us get down the road many more years, hopefully, before we have to come back and talk to the community. These are some potential areas, as you can imagine. As I mentioned before, we want to save little amounts everywhere so the impact is not felt by one area more than others. And then the final key takeaways of this portion is number 1, the district is cutting expenses. Going into this year alone, we were able to cut, it's really $3.7 million for starting this school year. 0.5%.
And growing. Literally,
yeah,
literally
and
every
growing.
day we're looking more opportunities.
Yeah. 0.5% traditional income tax generates $6.9 million in that 18-month window. Residents would pay 50 cents for every $100 of income, unless you're on Social Security. Those are exempt. And then another final key takeaway is that state funding to Miamisburg City Schools in 2026 was the same as 2019.
And in 2027, it's the same as 2019.
Yes. So now we'll transition into some numbers. Greg has a couple more slides specifically about our forecast and our budget and what it looks like. I know it's riveting.
All right, time for the numbers geek to get into the numbers. So yeah, just again, a lot of this is just this is getting a little bit more into the weeds on of everything that Stacy just went over. Key takeaways here. So this is the snapshot. You can see the actuals for 2026. That's fiscal year 26 that ended June 30th, and then we get into this fiscal year and on up. I mean, you'll see here. Bottom line, you see there's not a lot of movement currently. There is minimal growth. So what you don't see there is 3% growth per year, 6% growth over 2 years, 9%. You don't see that because again, we have no way of generating that. We're not going to keep pace with inflation. We've been losing that battle for years, and we're going to continue to lose that battle. So,
Hey, Greg, can I just say, if you can't read that, last year the actual was 67,900,000 round numbers, and over the coming 5 years, the highest it gets at the end there is 68,850,000. So.
Yeah, year over year, our property tax revenues, because of the property tax reform bills that were passed in December of 2025 that went into effect this year, we're dropping $1.8 million of actual year over year revenues. When we compare that to what we were projecting in October of last year, it's a $2.5 million drop because we didn't expect after the biennial budget was passed in June and none of those measures passed. We assumed that it was not going to be part of the legislation anymore. And I mean,
for us, sure it is anything. It was a Phoenix and it popped back up again and it got passed.
Which changed our numbers dramatically. As Stacy mentioned before, state revenues are flat. When you look at last fiscal year and this fiscal year, we are currently running at fiscal 19 state revenues. Again, and despite the fact that the state is bringing in record amounts, they chose not to fund schools and other things. It's just not schools, but other things as well. And you've got 30% cumulative inflation, over 30% over that same time period. State reimbursements, thankfully, we are this year. As part of the legislation that was passed in December, there is a one-time transition aid. They call it transition aid, where they're going to help us get over that hump. But the problem is the legislation continues from now until perpetuity. That transition aid does not. So effective next year, we're going to lose all of it. And then you have some modest growth. Again, if you look at the 1.060 line, the other revenues, that's tax incremental financing. So like the Austin exchange out on Austin Road, that area as it's been developed, it's subject to a compensation agreement, not regular taxes, because they received an abatement to help build the infrastructure out there. So those are brought in. Those revenues are received on a different line because they're not actual true taxes. And we also have seen an increase in Medicaid. Again, kudos to our staff. Our special needs team has done a great job of making sure that we properly document every opportunity to build a state of Ohio where we have students that are Medicaid eligible, because then the school district can be reimbursed for some of those special needs. And by doing that, that's helping to help reimburse the district for those expenses and increase our revenues. The story on the expense side is inflationary. We are trying to keep pace with inflation. We're trying to maintain as much cost controls as we can. As we talked about before, if you look at the 30-10 line, the personnel, you look year over year, we've actually gone down a little bit. So our teachers and staff are only getting a very modest 2% increase year over year for a cost of living increase. Then they get what's called a step. So they get another 2% for that. So 4% total. And despite that, because of the attrition, we were able to actually lower our expenses for staffing year over year. So big win there. Unfortunately, we don't get the same benefit on the benefit side because a teacher a teacher retires and they had health care, a new teacher comes in and they take health care, it's a wash. And now the amount that we have to chip in towards their pensions goes down because they're making less, so the amount that we contribute is less. But bottom line is it's still we don't get the same benefit or the same lowering of cost that way. And then you have purchase services and supplies. And again, we're doing everything that we can to hold tight on those and keep them. As we talked about, we are negotiating every contract. Every contract's going out to bid. For instance, we had one of our biggest contracts that we do annually. We were able to renegotiate that 18% less by taking it out to the market and working with the various vendors to come in with and in many cases, we actually got better terms and better coverage for that same dollar. So it's a win-win when you look at the total value proposition. So the bottom line is, again, it's important to admit, we knew prior to COVID that the district was on track to venture into deficit spending. It was known back then. The school board back in 2019 was having these very same conversations, and then COVID hit. And education, as we knew it, changed literally overnight. And thankfully, during that period, we received a lot of federal support. Schools got a lot of federal support in COVID relief. And that was able to kind of camouflage or mask the issue for a while. But eventually, that COVID relief ran out. And then we were back to the future. At that point, we were once again facing deficit spending. So this isn't a new problem. We've known it was coming for a long time. When Stacy and I were hired, the board was quite clear that this was going to be one of our main objectives in the first year, was to find ways to trim costs so that way we can avoid going out for more taxes. And we did everything that we could short of having to cut into the educational experience. Stacy has been adamant since day one to try to stay as far away from the classroom as possible. That's been our goal. And eventually we get to the point that we're not cutting fat, we're going to be cutting muscle. So that's what we're trying to avoid. So again, deficit spending we started last year. Without the additional revenues, yes, we're going to be forced to cut muscle. The school district income tax, again, when you see where we're at, you see all these, the green line up there is our cash balance at the end of the year. So you'll see right now, almost $22 million. We were over $24.5 million last year at the end of the year. This year we're projected to be around 22, and you'll see it's just gradually decreasing to the point. Just as you look at fiscal 28, that's $16 million. That's about our minimum that we need for operating capital. So most of you are business leaders. So you understand the importance of operating capital. You have to have money in the bank, because when you have those natural fluctuations in your revenues, you got to be able to meet payroll. You got to be able to pay your bills. So for us, that $16,473,000 cash balance, that's about as low as we can go. That's about 60 days. So again, that's not the low point of the year. That's just at the end of the fiscal year. So for us, when we start getting into these other balances in 29, we're down to $8.5 million, and then suddenly we're in the red as a cash balance. The state won't let us do it. If we are projecting an ending balance that's negative, the state will come in and take control of the schools. and they'll do cutting and they don't care where it comes from. We want to avoid that. So again, so we're doing everything that we can to maintain current services, combined with good, prudent cost control, and if we can pass this modest 0.5% income tax, you see the difference of our cash balances on the blue line. It makes all the difference. It gets us 5 years down the road, and hopefully the state sometime between then and now will come to their senses, or maybe the Supreme Court will get involved again. I don't know, but at this point, we have to do something in order to keep the ship afloat. And this is what we're proposing. We're hoping again that all of you will
see the
benefit in that, and talk to your friends and neighbors. If nothing else, communicate it out so everybody sees where we're at and what we're doing. Please come to our, we have these town halls that we're doing, these state of our schools, and we would love to have everybody come out, ask tons of questions. We're here to answer them.
Yes, and this presentation
Will be on our website if it's not already. It's a discussion pad, so it is available for everyone to see and to be shared because it is fact-based. And then also the dates, certainly on our social media, also on our website if you ever want to come out. And also feel free to reach out to me directly. If you have questions, your neighbors have questions, I'm happy, and Greg's happy to answer those. On a lighter note, we're looking to September 15th. The state report card will come out. And fingers crossed, we've seen some preliminary data. It looks pretty good, like we've increased some areas. So fingers crossed. Questions? Few questions. Yes.
Is there a cap per family on what you're taxed on? I have one daughter. Our family probably makes, I don't know, middle upper income. Is there a cap for how much? Just keep getting taxed regardless of how successful we are with our businesses.
Yes, it's the percentage directly to it.
Even if you don't have any kids.
Yes, there's not a
Is there a cost per student
a
or
top
it doesn't matter how many kids?
It's a flat tax.
It's a flat.
Of 0.5% on any income. So it's not progressive. Like if you are under $50,000, you're going to pay the 0.5%. If you're over 100,000, you're going to pay 0.5%. It is worth thinking. I've done a lot of thinking about this. I talk to clients about taxes a lot. Ohio has dropped their income tax significantly since 2004 when I graduated from college. So if you were earning over 100,000 in 2004, you were paying 6.9% income tax to Ohio. They just effectively dropped it down this year to, I think it's flat 2.75, which is down from 3.1, I think. So even if you're earning the most, you're going to pay a little bit more by voting for this, but you're paying less to Ohio in state taxes. So it's something to consider and think about.
and a portion is also offset by your property tax increases that came as a result of that legislation.
Because how much are you spending per student? And how does that compare to other districts?
I don't have it in the slide pack. We actually are, when you look at the state average, we are below the state average of the cost per student.
So what is the state saying it costs to educate a student? Like, I mean, my kids go to private school, and I'm not saying not supporting schools. I know how much it costs in the private school to educate my child, but how much in the public school are we saying it should cost?
Obviously, practically, the cost to educate a student at Miamisburg is different than Southeast Ohio, for example, or Metropolitan Cleveland. So, again, I can tell you what the somewhere, and again, I apologize, we don't have this in the slide pack. If you exchange information, I can get that from you. We actually, we are well below the state average. When you look at the state average cost per student, or the amount expended per student, Miamisburg is below the average.
It says that at $12,000 to $14,000 a student is what our buddies from chat say.
Must be right.
Which is below. It says below the medium average of Ohio.
Yeah, if you go to the Ohio State, every school district has the Ohio Department of Education, or the Education and Workforce now. They actually have a report card for the school district, including Miamisburg, and they have those financial metrics there as well. You'll see what the state average cost per student is, and that we're below that. There's some other metrics where, again, we're favorable to the state average. So again, from a spending and revenue perspective, what we bring in taxes and everything else, we are below the state average. So we're pretty prudent in our spending. That's why, again, it's so disappointing that the state's not keeping up with their share. When you look at the 20-year shift from how much schools were funded 20 years ago to now, they are pushing more and more and more. It has been a steady push back into the local communities for funding.
One thing that is complicated, I understand, my property tax went up 30%. But you're saying the rate went down. But it would be helpful to have some comparison to help people understand, even though your property tax went up, which I assume most people in Miamisburg did, what's the rate, the effective out of pocket, and compared to the 0.5%?
Yeah. And again, one of the bill, legislation that was passed, House Bill 186, what that did is that, so they said, this crazy 20, so like in 2023, when the update happened, the average in Miamisburg was 24.6%. What they said is that's ridiculous, and it ought to be capped at the inflation rate. So they're using it's called the gross domestic product deflator, GDP deflator. It's basically like a CPI, if you're familiar with the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, the same principle. So what they did is they said, all right, over that 3-year period, how much did inflation go up? That's where it should be capped. The problem is that they did it retroactively. So it went up in 23, and we received in 24 and in 25. They're taking and getting credits back on that as well. So what you've already received, they're giving back, which again, as a homeowner, I'm happy. Hey. But unfortunately to the schools, we did all of our contract negotiations with our collective bargaining agreements, all of our contractors, et cetera. We negotiated based on the premise of a certain income level, and now the income levels have dramatically dropped.
Okay, we're over, so we probably get it back to the president.
All righty. Very good, thank you.
And like I said,
The discussion continues. You need to reach out to them.
Yes.
Or go attend the meetings. All right, 2 tickets today. Last 3 numbers: 124 and 128. 124, 128. 124. Ted's got it. Okay. Very good. Let's go ahead and again thank you for coming today. And so let's go ahead and stand.
That's very important.
Oh, we get.
And remember throughout the rest of your week, the things that we think, say, and do. Number 1 is the truth. Number 2, number 3, relationships, and number 4, benefits for all. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of your day.